Hi! So you'll be watching this video if you think you have diastasis recti and you actually want to test the gap. You've been told, I need to test the gap. How wide is it? How deep is it? So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to test the gap. You'll be able to download a sheet on this website as well to measure it so that you can repeat the process after a few weeks of doing your specific exercises and see how your progress is going. So first of all, we're going to be looking at both the width and the depth of your gap. So the depth is actually more important than the width. So keep that in mind when you're going with this. When we measure the width of the gap, we talk about it in finger width. So you're actually going to place your fingers between your rectus abdominis muscles here and measure the gap. So you're going to measure 1 finger, 2 fingers, 3 fingers, 4 fingers, 5 fingers, whatever the size of the gap is. Now, 2.5 fingers or less is actually considered normal or repaired. So keep that in mind as well. Like most people do, especially after pregnancy, have a gap there. And that's nothing to worry about, okay? So don't freak out if you feel a little gap. It's okay. So 2.5 or less is actually considered healed and normal. What you do want to be concerned about is the depth. So with the depth, you're going to measure it based on your knuckles on your finger as it goes down. So how far can you push in until it hits some firmness beneath, okay? So it might be to the first knuckle, to your fingertip or your nail, between the first and the second knuckle, and you're going to measure that too. And finally, you're going to measure in 3 different locations. So what we're going to do is, lift up my shirt here, we're going to follow our lower rib up to our sternum, and we're going to go about 1 inch below the sternum where the ribs meet, and that's going to be the first place we measure. Then we're going to find our belly button and we're going to measure just above that, and then we're actually going to measure a couple of inches or 1 inch and a bit below the belly button. Okay, so 3 locations you're going to do your measurements. So that means you're going to have 6 numbers. Now we're going to repeat this twice. 1 when you're just lifting up your head slightly off the floor and take your measurements then. And then a 2nd when you're actually engaging. So you're going to pull up your pelvic floor and you're going to drop your ribs and you're going to breathe outwards and lift slightly off the mat. And you're going to test it at that point as well, because what we're interested in is the difference between the 2. Okay, so let's get started. So as always, make sure you go down safely. You should never go flat down like this. It takes you into a crunch position. So in bed at night, when you wake up in the morning, anytime you get down on the floor, make sure you go down on your side and roll over. Okay, so let's do this. So the first time, we're going to go up and down a little bit. And you're just going to slightly lift your head off the ground. Measure the width. So you should feel a little gap between your rectus here, the 2 abdominal muscles that come down here. And you're looking to see whether there's a gap. So don't freak out if there is a gap. Remember, 2 fingers and a bit, normal. Okay? And then what you want to know is how far down you can go until you hit some firmness. Okay, now rest for a little bit, find your belly button, just come up a bit and lift your head slightly off. Again, find how far that gap is, how far down you can go. Good, where does it reach that hard firmness? Okay, and relax. And the 3rd time, so you've got your belly button, come down 1 inch or so. And again, repeat. Let's lift your head up a little bit and work out the width and the depth down there. Excellent. Okay, so this time we're going to repeat the process quickly. but we're going to engage. So to do that, I want you to pull up your pelvic floor and drop your ribs when you exhale. So let's inhale and relax. And exhale, pull up, pull down, and chest. And relax. And again. And for a third time, inhale and exhale. Good. So remember, you're pushing down and you're pulling up with your pelvic floor. And roll over and stand up. So I want you to note those down too. The key here is if you're engaging properly, you shouldn't be able to go down as far. Okay? You should hit firmness before you did previously. If you don't, that means you're not engaging your abs and they're not firing properly, which means you shouldn't be doing most of the exercise you're probably doing. So the first thing, if there is no difference between the relaxed and the engaged depth, you need to be working on engaging your core muscles, working on your breathing. So your sideways breathing there, not your rib thrusting breathing, not sucking in your belly button, just breathing. Nice deep breaths and engaging your transverse muscles down here. So those are your TVAs. And I'll give you another video on that if you don't know how to engage those. Okay, so make sure you download the measurement chart that I've provided for you. And you're going to do this twice. So once when you're just lifting up your head slightly and relax. And that lift is just to activate your abs so that you can feel where the gap is. No crunches. Remember, never, ever, ever a crunching motion ever again. Even once you have healed your diastasis, because it puts too much pressure on your abdominal wall, okay? Hurts your back. You're going to measure the width and the depth in 3 different places, remembering that the depth is more important than the width. If you have a 2.5 finger gap or less, the width is fine. But if it's deep before you hit firmness, so if you go down to that first knuckle and you haven't hit firmness yet, when you're engaged, you still need to work on engaging your core before you start going back to boot camp or whatever else you want to do. Because when you start to lift up your weights, you're going to not be engaged, you're going to put pressure on your abdominal wall, and you're going to cause your diastasis to open again. Okay? So, depth is really important. Okay, I really hope this helped. Please comment below if it did. And if you have any questions, as always, just ask. Okay.